Hello there, everyone. Thank you for tuning in tonight for our talk entitled Stress and Immunity. So, the reason that I'm doing this talk is because there's a lot of information that's out there that is a lot of misinformation, and really whenever it comes to your stress and your immune system, there's a lot of missing links that not many people are talking about. And so that's what I'm here to do today, is to kind of paint that picture for you, give you the research, give you the information, and also give you action steps on how to implement these things into your life, so that way not only can you handle stress better, but you can also work on boosting your immune system. So that's what this talk is going to be on tonight. Well, let's get into it. So the next slide here. What is this guy right here? This is the day that the world stopped. What does that mean? We found out that a lot of people in America were living out of fear. We were going about our days just like any other day, thinking everything was fine, and then all of a sudden the media came out and said, watch out, there's a fear, there's a threat, and this little guy right here is going to kill millions of lives. Now, instinctively, we should be stressed out about that type of thing being taught to us or told to us, but what it's going to do is it's going to spike us up in stress, and if we never come down from this, it's going to burn us out. It's going to burn out our adrenals, and you're going to see that it's going to have an effect on everything else in the body, especially your digestive tract, which is where we talk about your immune system. So I'm going to share with you some research from throughout the years where you can actually piece together these things, so that way you know when we're talking about health, when you're talking about well-being, that stress can be at the root of it all. So now raise your hand if you know somebody who's had stress in their life, maybe a time or two. Of course, we all have, right? Now, when you think about that person, maybe a friend that don't really have stress in their life, but they never seem to be able to get away from it, you have pictures of people ripping their hair out, people constantly frantically running around like little crackheads. What does that mean? It means your body is constantly in a state of fight or flight. Again, our bodies are designed to go through these phases, but if we never come back to normal, or never come back to what's called homeostasis, then our bodies are going to consistently shut down. And so these things, these adaptive mechanisms are good for a short period of time, a short duration, but if we never fix them, think about those people. Those are the people who are constantly sick. They're constantly missing work. They're always worrisome. They're always fearful about the next epidemic or pandemic that's going to happen. And if they go to their doctors consistently, they're going to seem like they're a hypochondriac, and they're going to end up giving them some sort of antipsychotic or antidepressant, which is not going to get to the underlying cause of the problem. It's just going to mask a symptom, and the symptom in this case is unmanaged stress. So let's have a look here. Foundational health issues. So the main thing, or the main staple that we're going to be talking about today, is going to be secretory IgA. If you've ever run a stool test with me, you'll see that SIGA is written out on the stool test, or our newer ones will actually have secretory IgA. And so what that does is it talks about your mucosal immunity, and that's basically any layer of skin that has some mucous membranes to it. So that's our digestive tract, our sinuses, our respiratory tract, especially when we're talking about this whole COVID thing. We have to make sure that we understand that if we have low secretory IgA or a low immune system, we're at a higher risk of becoming infected, which is not where we would like to be, correct? Exactly. So a hint, they're all over your body, connected in function and purpose and regulation. So they're all kind of intertwined together. No spot is different from another. So if I test your secretory IgA in your digestive tract, it's going to give me a good outlook on what's going on your other mucous membranes. And if we have a low number in a stool culture, then we're going to find out that we had a low number in the nasal passages and respiratory pathway, again, leading you more towards a higher risk threat of having some other sort of infection take place. So let's get into the research here. All right. So the role of mucosal immunity in influenza. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, influenza is going to be your flu viruses. So what this is going to show is that basically your specific secretory immunoglobulin A, or SIGA, can inhibit initial pathogen colonization by performing immune exclusion from that area. So basically what it's going to do, and that's without causing tissue damage, what it's going to do is that secretory IgA is going to be your first line defense to defend against any viruses or anything like that being able to implant themselves on you, which would cause you to have some sort of infection. A fun story is actually a research or a case study that they did was on 12 prisoners. And what they did is they had them drink Giardia, which is an infection that's not very good to have. It's traveler's diarrhea, more or less. And so what they did is they measured their secretory IgA before they gave them the Giardia, and then they measured it after. And so what they found is that the people with high level secretory IgA or normal levels were able to get through the Giardia real quickly and didn't really hurt them, versus the people who had low secretory IgA, they became violently ill and needed to be treated aggressively because it was really damaging their body. So what does this mean? When we have a properly functioning digestive tract in our immune system, we should be able, in theory, to be able to come across any type of germ, bacteria, virus, whether it's new or old. It should be able to get in and out of our body without causing serious harm. And that's basically what this research study is showing. This was back in 2003, so it's not ancient, and it's not exactly like it's new science, so it's been around for a while, and it's been well tested, it's been well documented. That's just one of the articles. This one right here, mucosal immunity and viral infections. So again, talking about your body's ability with a proper secretory IgA to be able to fight off viral infections. So this is just the abstract on it, and basically what it does is it causes you to have a production of virus-induced cytokines, and it's basically going to increase your natural killer cell activity, which is not good just for the viral infections, but natural killer cells are phenomenal whenever it's coming to cancers. If we have the high levels of natural killer cells, then we're going to be able to fight off pretty much anything across the board. So they play a huge role, or a major role, in clearing viral infections and preventing or modifying disease after re-exposure. That's pretty nifty, right? So when you have a natural immune response, your secretory IgA destroys it and makes sure that if that virus comes back again, that it's not going to have a chance to cause any harm to the body. What's that sound like? It sounds like what they're trying to do, they're trying to vaccinate us to kind of mimic this type of effect when our bodies naturally do this stuff. Let us become exposed to these viruses, let us build an immune response to it so that way it doesn't harm us, not just now, but also into the future. Just another research article. That was back in 2001 in a medical journal. All right, multifaceted functions of secretory IgA and mucosal surfaces. So basically what this did was showed that there is a direct correlation between having high cortisol or high stress and a lowering secretory IgA. So what does that mean? So when we're stressed and we're in a fearful state, what that's going to do is cause our cortisol to raise. When that cortisol raises, it's going to progressively lower and degenerate and cause those secretory IgA, cause those numbers to diminish. So chronic stress will cause secretory IgA to lower. So initially, remember, when we heard about this virus, yeah, we should have been really nervous. We should have been really concerned about it taking over and hurting us, not just ourselves, but our children, our loved ones, our grandparents. But if we don't realize that our bodies are designed to fight these things and we don't get over that initial cortisol spike or that stress hump, what's it going to do to our bodies? It's going to cause harm. It's going to decrease our secretory IgA, and not only could we become susceptible to COVID, but we can become susceptible to parasite infections, bacterial infections, low stomach acid leading to H. pylori infections, you name it, and this can have a strong correlation to that. I'm going to keep the research going here, okay? All right, so next one. Interference of, what's that word? Of coronavirus infection by expression of immunoglobulin G, or IgG, or IgA. Okay, so what this is going to show is that a strong host basically prevents infection of these types of diseases. This was back in '97 in the Journal of Virology. Okay, 1997 they found this out. So immunoglobulin gene fragments, basically if you read this, it's kind of nerdy, but basically you're going to have your body's natural defense to be able to create antibodies against this, and if you have a strong immune system, it's not going to cause harm to you, okay? This is talking about your coronavirus. So I know COVID-19 is the 2019 version of this, but most coronavirus have similar properties, and viruses even really have similar properties. So this kind of goes across the board to make sure that you know that your bodies were designed to fight these things off. Last one here, functional maturation of nasal mucosa, role of secretory IgA. So secretory IgA plays an important role in defending the mucous membranes of upper respiratory airways from common infections. What's that mean? It defends your upper respiratory tract. So what was the number one thing that people were supposedly to do once they realized, oh no, I had scratches in the throat, go get tested for COVID. Well, what if you had a strong secretory IgA and then that never happened? It's not that you're just harboring this disease. Your body is strong enough to be able to fight it off without there being any consequences. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty fantastic. So you have tons and tons and tons of literature. All you have to do is dig, spend some time digging on secretory IgA and the stress response, and that by itself should educate you enough to know that your bodies were designed to heal, function, and operate at 100%. No matter if we have vaccinations or medications, we need to make sure we're getting to the underlying cause of the problem, fix it, build our immune system so that way we can be strong now, but then also into the future, okay? Still checking here. All right, so I just wanted to let you know, this is a free webinar, free live for you to look at, but I am still accepting new patients. That's one of the main questions when I talk about this stuff. Are you accepting new patients? Are you still open through this? Yeah, we've been open the entire time. We've been helping our patients this entire time as well. None of my patients have contracted COVID. None of my patients have died from COVID. They're all nice and strong and feeling healthy and well, and I want that for you too. And so what I was willing to do is basically say, let's step aside for a second. Let's just do a health evaluation, just 15 minutes to chat back and forth and see if you'd be a good fit for our office, and I would be a good fit as one of your doctors in your regimen to get you healthy and well. So if you're interested in doing that, you can go to drchalkmoser.com or call directly at 412-828-6000 and go ahead and book your free 15-minute health evaluation. Let Cynthia know that, and we'll get you on the schedule. I'd love to be able to meet and talk with you. But now we're going to go into the nitty-gritty. We're going to go into the nerdy stuff, which you guys know I love. All right, picture time. So, catabolic physiology. What does that mean? Catabolic or catabolism is where you have building blocks and you break them down. Okay, it's like you have a house and you break it down into bricks. Same thing's going to happen here. Food intake, proteins, carbs, and triglycerides over here, or fats. What you're going to have is proteins are going to break down into amino acids. It's a smaller version of proteins. They're like pre-digested. Carbohydrates, we should all know this by now, but they're going to break into glucose, or a form of sugar. And we have this over here. Triglycerides are going to break down into glycerol and fatty acids, and all of it can produce energy. Okay? Now, amino acids are used for protein synthesis, and if we have cannibalism of muscle tissue or starvation response, it's going to go back and feed you more amino acids. So what does that mean? Let's break this down for a second. So I've been digging into branched chain amino acids and essential amino acids quite a bit. Now, if we have protein, we have protein synthesis, and say we're stressed out. We're stressed all day, every day, constantly. What this is going to do is keep us in that fight or flight response, and we're going to be trying to funnel as much energy or as much food source as possible towards going into protein synthesis. So what it's going to do is break down lean muscle mass to expose amino acids so that way it can fuel the stress response. It's not what you want to do, especially if you spend years and years and years building that lean muscle mass. So you'll start to get flabby, you'll lose muscle tone, you'll start to have some puffiness on the outside of the skin where you look like you're just kind of a bag of goo. And that's going to be because of chronic stress. All right? So if we go down through here, glucose forms into ADP and basically get an extra molecule there to form ATP, and that's going to give us energy. So ATP is the fuel source of the body. Catabolic reactions are going to be in blue, anabolic are going to be in green. So anabolic means building, all right? You're building blocks, you're being able to build things. So this is all a proper pathway here. The blue right here is going to be if you go catabolic. So what it's going to do is if we have fats over here, glycerol and fatty acids, you're going to go into lipid synthesis and storage. And then if we go through here and we have a catabolic reaction, we're going to break down our fat stores, and that's going to be a positive. In most cases, it's going to be a positive to be able to break down those fat stores and use it for energy, right? If we're trying to go into ketosis, this is going to be one of the things that we're trying to do. But if we're in stress for a long period of time, it takes a lot more time, it takes a lot more energy to break down fat into energy versus if it broke down a carb into energy. So we want to try to remember that too when we're going into this. Okay. And then going back into this as well, when we're going into catabolic state, not only are we breaking down our lean muscle mass, but we're also going to break down things like our intestinal tissue too. So it can lead into leaky gut, again, having hypochlorhydria or decrease in stomach acid. If we're constantly breaking down tissues over and over again, your gut's never going to heal. So we really want to make sure we take a picture of everything and do it in order, so that way we're addressing stress, addressing any gut dysfunction, and getting your body to heal, function, and operate again at 100%. So just one of my favorite pictures there. Okay, 3-body system breakdown. So what does this do? This has 3 different systems that we talk about in our office here. So body system 1 is going to be stress hormone increase. So what is that? That's basically your adrenal hormones. Stress hormone, number 1, is going to be cortisol. Raises it up, cortisol goes high, then that means our body's going to be in a stress or fight or flight state. All right? Usually it's going to be precipitated, or something like this is going to cause you to have a high cortisol output. A death, a divorce, childbirth, overwork. Who's overworked? I am. So all of these things are going to cause your body to go in that state of stress. It's a lifestyle thing. It's pushing us into stress. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Maybe it's a bad relationship with your kids or your coworkers. You're constantly in that fight or flight response, thinking that your body's going to get attacked when it's not, and it's all in your head. But your subconscious mind doesn't have the ability to be able to differentiate between something that is a real threat and something that we're imagining to be a threat. So if we tell ourselves this person's a bad person, or I hate this person, or I don't like this situation, our subconscious mind is going to make that be true, and it's going to push us into even more stress, which is going to make us lash out at the people that we do love and enjoy being around, and it's going to affect other areas of the body. Okay, so body system 1, and then boom, you're going to have a decrease in your immune response. Remember that research that said if we have high cortisol, it's going to cause our secretory IgA to go lower. So what does that do? Leads to body system 2, so that's our GI. So if we have things like infections, okay, again, yeast, bacteria, you name it, we have these infections, we get food intolerances, food sensitivities, leaky gut. So how many people know someone who's had multiple yeast infections time and time again, and they've tried natural routes, or they even tried medical routes, and they can't seem to get rid of the darn infections? Well, 2 things could be happening. They could just not be doing the right protocol. They could be ignoring how you seal the gut back up again, or you could have a hidden stressor in your body that you may not have been able to deal with. So that could be causing low secretory IgA, causing constant tension and breakdown in your digestive tract. Now, as that progresses, we slide over to the next one, and that's where we have an accumulation of toxins. Then we go to body system 3, which is our detox system. So things like our liver, kidneys, being able to get these bad things out of our bodies. So we have an overall buildup in our body. We have to make sure we address each one of the systems here. That's why a lot of patients in our office will get a food sensitivity test, they'll get a GI map test or a stool test, then we'll do either a Dutch complete test, or we'll do an adrenal panel, depending on what the patient needs, and that'll allow us to be able to address the majority of these systems. So it's kind of a full-on approach. Now, you want to correct the body system in the order that the problem occurs. So sometimes it could be stress mediated. Sometimes it could be, stress caused the problem to happen, cause and effect. Sometimes the GI infection could cause it to happen. But if we don't address all of them in order, then what's going to happen is we're going to try to get results. We're going to feel well for a while. We're going to hit a plateau, and then all of a sudden it happens again. Now, I fell victim to thinking it was GI all day, every day. But really, I was under a current state of stress. And I was in a fearful state, and I was constantly in that, and it was an abusive relationship that I was in mentally, and it kept causing me to have an increase in my stress hormones until my hormones crashed down. It affected my testosterone, it affected my gut health, and now since rebuilding these things and realizing what the underlying cause was, I'm back to where I need to be. I have more energy again than I usually can know what to do with, and I'm loving life again. I'm having an amazing relationship with my wife, and she was not the one that's causing me the stress, or my kid. All right? So, adrenal hormones, what can happen? We want to replace the things that might be getting burnt out. So, branched chain amino acids, essential amino acids. My friend, my really good friend, Raul Haichu, owns a company called HiFit, and he has a BCAA and EAA blend that is phenomenal. It has some tryptophan in there too, so it helps with that protein synthesis. So that way it can repair any type of tissue damage that you may have had. So you can do like 2 doses of that during the day, and that should be enough for you to be able to rebuild that tissue and make sure you're making enough of your neurotransmitters to feel good and feel healthy and well, so that way anxiety, depression, fatigue also go away. Then you go into the GI, so you're going to have leaky gut, so you can do a protocol for that. Yeah, you can use some probiotics, you can use some enzymes, but that's why I love doing the stool test. So I can see what phase of gut dysfunction you're in, phase 1, 2, or 3. These are great if we just have a phase 1 problem where we just have an imbalance in our microbiome. It's really easy to fix, and that would work really, really well for it. But what if we have an organ problem? What if we have a liver problem, a gallbladder problem? What if we have a serious leaky gut? These are things that we want to make sure we address in a proper phase, in a proper protocol, so that way it doesn't become an issue in the future. All right? What if you have an infection? What if you have H. pylori? What if you have, again, a yeast, candida, you name it? This can happen from GI, and then it'll push over and go into the detox, and we won't be able to do that very well. So sometimes you need to support the liver cells in the detox pathways, but that is usually one of the last things that we do, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They jump into these detoxes, and they're not quite ready for that, okay? So I'm gonna go into another analogy here in just a moment. All right, so pretend we're in detox phase, right? If we have leaky gut, we're supposed to be solid like a tube from top to bottom out the exit, right? So if we're stuck in a detox problem and we have GI issue, we have adrenal issues, are cleanses and detoxes stressful? Yes. So if we're adding more stress, is that a good thing for your body? No. What if we have leaky gut, which just means we have giant holes in our intestinal lining and we dump a whole bunch of toxins in your gut? Is that good for you? No. You're going to recirculate a lot of those things back into the bloodstream. What if you're not pooping? If you're not pooping, you're not getting rid of waste, you're not getting rid of toxins, so all you're going to be doing is dumping more aggressive metabolites or toxins into the colon just to get recirculated back into the body. You're going to feel terrible. And what's the number one thing that you're told when you're feeling no symptoms? You're detoxing. You're doing a good job. Keep up the good work. If you're detoxing properly, you shouldn't have to have those crazy ups and downs unless we're really doing a radical diet change and we have some yeast die-off or you name it. That could be something that can cause some harm, but you have to make sure you're doing this stuff in order before we get to the detox phase. It's massively imperative, okay? So we talk about this here. So underlying cause, I'm gonna step aside here for a second so that way we can see what we're doing here, okay? So if we have this cause, all right, underlying cause, we have it ranked more or less in order. So this is the Kalish method here. So underlying cause, emotional, spiritual, so trauma, abuse, chronic stress, and addiction. It's going to be a massive cause for a lot of dysfunction. Okay, dietary, so blood sugar. Are you eating too much or are you eating too little? You could have a blood sugar problem. All right, nutritional deficiencies. A lot of people are nutritionally deficient, whether it's from stress, poor diet, or leaky gut. So we have to make sure we take care of that. What about dairy? What about food allergies or sensitivities? Gluten. I keep going over stool tests with people, and people cannot break down gluten properly, and they're going and mounting a defense against gluten. Just cut it out. GI infections, toxins, genetics, epigenetics, structural. So what do we talk about? Chiropractic, adjusting the spine. How's your sleep? What about exercise? Too much, too little? Are you on medications? Certain medications can deprive your body of certain nutrients. What about dental? Do you have any mercury fillings? Lyme, mold, viral, bacteria infections, SIBO, environmental exposures, right? So there's a lot of these underlying causes that are kind of a summary, but a lot of people have dealt with these things. What does it do? It can cause the 4 horsemen, so it can cause inflammation. That's the instant thing. Boom, you do it, you're inflamed, right? Now what's going to happen next? You're going to lead into a catabolic physiology, which means you're going to start breaking things down. You're going to break down tissues, you're going to break down your intestinal lining, you're going to break down everything in your body because you need it to be able to use for energy sources. You're eventually going to develop insulin resistance. High stress causes your body to be less sensitive to insulin, so you're not going to be able to regulate your blood sugar that well. So you're going to constantly have high blood sugar, high hemoglobin A1C. It's also going to cause your brain to deteriorate as well. What about oxidative stress? It's not a good one, right? Oxidative stress is one of the worst things you can do to your body because it can actually physically damage your DNA. Think about oxidation. That's like having rust on a hinge. It doesn't move properly and you're causing some serious damage to that. Now there's ways to reverse that, but again, you have to find that underlying cause. What about the body system? So we can usually lump it into 3 body systems here. So the neuroendocrine, or the adrenal system, adrenal hormones, the GI, and the liver, so detox. And what are some symptoms? So you go ahead and name there, go ahead and put down on the list how many symptoms that you know people are dealing with on a daily basis, right? Who doesn't want to lose a little bit of weight? Who doesn't want a little bit more energy? Feeling depressed lately, maybe a little bit of anxiety, getting cabin fever, GI problems, so gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, sex hormone imbalances, low sex drive, infertility, hot flashes, night sweats, PMS, PCOS. Talk about a record high in miscarriages so far in the beginning of this year. seeing a record high with infertility, and things are just getting worse and worse and worse in our normal medical system. But I work with patients like this every single day, and we're able to get results where every other system has failed. Why? Because we've figured out the underlying cause. It's what's really, really, really important about this, and that's what makes our programs very specific for you. What about pain, okay? Allergies, ADHD, insomnia, brain fog, sugar cravings, skin problems, autoimmune disease. You're probably thinking, what the heck in the world? How does this have anything to do with this? Or how does this have anything to do with this? It has everything to do with it, okay? Because your body doesn't just work as one system, it works in unison. The brain is not separate from the body is not separate from the brain. You know, your heart, your circulatory system is not separate from your digestive system. Your digestive system is not separate from your muscular system. So there are so many things that are interconnected that once you find the underlying cause, you'd be surprised at how many of these things start to go back to normal. You know, I help people all the time with infertility, and one of the tests I run is a gut test, a GI test. And people are like, why the heck? I'm coming to you for infertility. Why would you test my gut? Test my hormones, test this, test my semen, test my eggs. Why are you doing my gut? Well, if your gut is infected or affected, it's going to throw everything else off in the body. Not only that, but it's going to make your pregnancy a lot more difficult on you, and you have a high risk for miscarriage. So there's a lot of reasons why we tie these things in here. It's really, really important to know that. So talking about stress and infertility, let's talk about how this impacts your hormonal system. Okay, so cortisol and catecholamine connection. So this is not down below, this is up top. So basically what this is going to do is corticotropin releasing hormone is going to come down and stimulate, this is your anterior pituitary, it's going to stimulate that, it's going to release your ACTH, and it's going to go to your adrenal glands, and it's going to stimulate your cortex, okay? That's where you're going to get your adrenaline and all those from. Then over here, seeing how that comes through your preganglionic sympathetic fibers are going to hit your adrenal medulla, which is the inside, and that's going to be your epinephrine and your norepinephrine, okay? So we have different things, long-term responses and short-term stress responses going to be associated with each system. So if we're in a short-term amount of stress, what are you familiar with? Increase in heart rate, pupil dilation, blood pressure increases, bronchioles dilate, so that way you can get more oxygen in. What about over here? Long-term stress response, your kidneys retain sodium and water, blood volume, proteins and fats converted into glucose and broken down for energy. Right? That's just our normal physiological function. But what about this one? Okay, this one right here. So we talk about our HPA axis, HPT axis, and there's actually an HPG axis as well that we'll talk about at a later date. This one is less sexy as the other chart, but it has a huge effect on our overall body, and this is talking about how stress will actually affect your thyroid. So if you get put on a thyroid medication, it's an actual contraindication where you're not supposed to be put on a thyroid medication unless this problem is fixed, okay? Your HPA axis. So what causes dysfunction, right? So stress is written out here in the middle: psychological, traumatic, electromagnetic, infectious, allergic, dysbiotic, xenobiotic. What's it going to do? It's going to affect your HPT and your HPA axis, right? So HPA, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal cortex, is going to have some stimulation here, right? So if we're in a hyper response, we're in an excessive response due to this guy right here, it's going to send more of a signal down to your pituitary gland, more of a signal down to your adrenal cortex, more of a signal down to produce all of your stress hormones, right? Just how it flows. It's a normal flow chart. Now that's going to cause us to be in that constant state of fight or flight. So what this is going to do, if we're seeing here, we're kind of connecting the dots, we have these guys over here, which is what's called a negative feedback loop. So that means when you have too much of something, it's supposed to radio back to your HPA axis or your hypothalamus to say, hey, pump the brakes, we've got plenty down there, don't worry about that anymore, we've got plenty, shut the system down, and let's just focus on what we have. So this goes here, it's going to recirculate, you're going to see dotted lines go freaking everywhere. But I want you to see how catecholamines, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and aldosterone over here are going to come over and they're going to hit something over on this side here, okay? What is it going to inhibit? So you have your HPT axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, and thyroid. So when we get our thyroid tested, what do most medical doctors or endocrinologists test? Your freaking TSH and T4, right? That's stupid. It's one of the dumbest things to get tested because it's so basic, and so many other things are going to affect it that we need to see our other things. We need our reverse T3, and we need T3 as well. We need a couple other things in antibodies to make sure that this response is doing what it's supposed to. So, if we're looking over here, we're seeing how the response can affect the rest of the body. So, inhibition over here, boom, stops your T3. Now, if we have these guys over here, or cortisol, coming up and boom, it inhibits your TSH, or boom, your HP axis, the hypothalamus pituitary, it's going to shoot inhibition over to your TSH. TSH broken down is thyroid stimulating hormone. So if it inhibits that, it's going to slow down your response. You're going to have a decrease in thyroid output, decrease in T4, decrease in T3, decrease in reverse T3, because we just have less signals going down to your thyroid to tell it to produce hormones. But then you also have this guy over here, where you're going to have inhibition over here. It's going to inhibit T3, but it's also going to stimulate your thyroid's conversion of T4 into reverse T3. Not a good place to be. Reverse T3 is a competitive inhibitor of T3. So it's going to mimic T3, and it's going to act like, hey, I've got plenty of hormones, but it's going to shut down your active form of just T3. So you can see how stress has a massive impact on thyroid. So what's that going to do? If we have hypothyroid, we have slow thyroid function, yeah, we can have Hashimoto's, we can have other types of Graves' disease, we can have all those conditions happen, but what is that underlying cause? More often than not, we have a broken down HPA axis that's basically causing massive inhibition over here. Fix the cause, symptoms go away, right? So again, we have to make sure we get a full picture of what's actually going on here. And then when we talk about the HPG axis, having an overactive HPA axis can actually shut down your gonadal system. It can damage your sex hormones. Again, talking about men, especially with testosterone. So what is this? This is your normal circadian rhythm, circadian release of cortisol. So daytime, nighttime, daytime, nighttime. So you're going to see it goes in waves, okay? So 12 p.m., so this is at noon, you're going to see it crash down to about 10 o'clock is where you hit your low. Then you're going to come up again, 6 o'clock is when you're going to wake up. You're going to come down at noon, again down here, and you're seeing how it goes up and down and up and down, and it's supposed to be in that rhythm consistently. If it's broken, if you have a broken rhythm, we're going to have some serious problems, and your adrenal glands are going to go through exhaustion. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So here's progressive stage of adrenal exhaustion. So if you do a test with us, and you do either our stress profile or adrenal profile, or you do a Dutch test, if we have markers that are way high away from normal, we're going to be pushing into an acute phase of stress. But if your stress stays up high, your DHEA output is going to start dropping down low, and what that's going to do is cause your body to start going into adrenal exhaustion into phase 2. One of your cortisols is going to start to drop down, and we're going to slowly go in from a phase 1 to a phase 2 to a flat line more or less of a phase 3, and you can even push into a more serious condition called Addison's, which is where you have adrenal failure, where you basically just cannot produce any cortisol, okay? So what does that look like? So this is our Dutch test. This is a Dutch complete that we did on a patient here, okay? So what we're seeing is up here. So we'll talk about pregnenolone here on the next slide, but pregnenolone is the mother hormone. It's going to filter out all the hormones of the rest of the body, okay? So we have low progesterone, which is a woman here, so it's going to be cycling. It's going to be your cyclic hormone, but you need pregnenolone to go to progesterone to make progesterone. You need pregnenolone to go to DHEA to make hormones. So you see how this whole flow chart happens, and we have good hormones down here, but over here on the androgen side, we're in a DHEA deficiency and we're in a progesterone deficiency. So what does that mean? What's happening here? Well, if you look at the cortisol output, we have cortisone over here, we have cortisol over here. Waking up first thing in the morning, cortisol is bottomed out. In the morning time, boom, it goes back up to normal, then afternoon, bottoms out, nighttime, bottoms out. So we have 3 different points out of 4 that are really, really, really low. So we need to nurture that. We need to take care of those adrenal glands, and this is what that looks like, and this is the reason why. This is called a pregnenolone steal. It's very important to memorize this slide. There will be a quiz at the end of this. I'm just kidding. Okay, so cholesterol, we need cholesterol, so get your good healthy fats in, make sure your gallbladder's functioning to do it. But pregnenolone, when it's being stolen, what it's going to do, pregnenolone's usually going to go to your progesterone, and then it's going to go over to here, and it's going to get broken down into cortisol and cortisone. Okay, so cortisol and cortisone. So if I'm looking back over here, cortisone is scraping the bottom of the barrel the entire way through. So if we look at how this is here, we've run out of product over here. Cortisol is trying to keep it go together, but everything is basically getting stolen and producing more stress, more stress, more stress, okay? So progesterone is going to be deprived, but it's also going to block conversion of pregnenolone into dehydroepiandrosterone, or DHEA. DHEA is massively important for all other hormones in the body, and you can kind of see that where you have it come down here and it filters down to things like testosterone and also to your estrogen. So you can have estrogen deficiency and you can have testosterone deficiency because we have a broken down pregnenolone steal. This isn't just for women, again talking about progesterone, this is for men as well, because stress can steal it, go down through here and produce more cortisol. So what is the underlying problem? Stress in this individual. So we have to make sure we understand what's causing the stress, eliminate that as best we can through lifestyle changes. Now that we know what the test says, we can actually supplement things properly and get results back. And you usually notice it within the first month or so, but we know that this patient has gut dysfunction, hormonal dysfunction, and she also had thyroid dysfunction, Hashimoto's. So all of these things we talked about on the previous slides of all the systems being affected are all due to stress. So underlying cause, what was it? So we have emotional stress, we had infections, okay? So what else was going on here? Inflammation, catabolic physiology, insulin resistance. What areas were being affected? Mainly the neuroendocrine system and her GI. And what were her symptoms? Her symptoms were all over on this side. So with this being said, when we have these tests, we're able to do things properly to make sure we analyze things so we know exactly the course of treatment for you. And this is very different, it's very unique from most other, whether it's functional medicine doctors or just medical doctors or even chiropractors. This stuff takes time to learn, it takes time to study, it takes time to develop. And that's why our protocols work, is I never stop learning. And I wanted to roll out this information for you too, so that way you have tangible things that you can put into play yourself, so that way you can start getting better today. So what would I suggest? The obvious thing is you have nothing to lose if you schedule a free 15-minute consult with me. Nothing at all. We'll just gather some information on you, and in that 15-minute consult, I'll let you know if you're a good fit for our office, and if so, what tests would be recommended at that time. The tests aren't free, the supplements aren't free, the test read isn't free, but to get the foot in the door to be able to understand, do you have a condition that I've either helped before or I have experience with, we can have that conversation and see if we would work well together. The last thing I'd want to do is be able to try to stress you out even more, give you a protocol that you're not really willing to do, because realistically, I don't want to put your health in jeopardy, and I don't want to put my reputation in jeopardy because you're not willing to do the work. So I'm here to help you if you want the help, but I can't take your health into my hands. I've tried that many, many times. It does not work. All right? And there's three types of people that I found in this world. It's the type of people who have given up, they're beaten, destroyed, they've been to medical doctors, they've been to specialists, and they live their lives based off their diagnosis. I can't eat that because I'm diabetic. I can't go here because I can't walk. I can't do that. They're based off limitations based off of their diagnosis, okay? Those people are basically labeled as the victims. I'm the victim. I can't deal with this. I can't get better. I can't be well. There's a second type of person who they have been through things in their lives and they don't really do anything until they have their health taken away from them. And that's kind of where we're at in society today, is that most people wait until we have a problem or until they have a problem to be able to seek help. Right? And that's what we're getting dealt with, the cards we're getting dealt with more or less, with this whole virus. Because we were caught with our pants down. Realistically, that's what happened. We weren't ready. We weren't mentally ready to say, oh my gosh, is your health where it needs to be able to ward this thing off? They didn't even know what health is at this point, and they're stressed. They wait and they're reactive whenever it comes to their care. And the third type of person is the best fit for our office. It's the people that have done the research, they want to get results, they're willing to put forth their effort, they're a 5 out of 5 wanting to get new lifestyles, they're willing to do whatever it takes and go whatever distance and pay whatever the cost is to invest into their most important asset, which is their health. Those are the type of people that get the best results. Because it's like two people going to the gym. Person A goes to the gym and they're like, oh, this is a good gym, and they leave. And you have person B that goes to the gym, does cardio, works out, eats right, goes home, and loves life, and they do that on a consistent basis. Which person is going to get the best results? Person A, the person just shows up to the gym and looks into the windows, or person B, who's putting in the time and effort to get the results? It will always be person B. So if you're person B, reach out. Let us know if there's something we can help you with. I don't care if you've had testing done before, send it in. I'd love to be able to get my hands on those tests to see if there's something that we can do from a different approach. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you like this video, please share it. I really appreciate that. And in comments, leave people's names in the box there too, so that way they can see it. If there's other topics that you want me to talk about, I'd love to be able to do more of these webinars for you. So thank you all, and look forward to talking with you on the phone.